Good evening, everyone. You are ready for lesson 2-2, rounding whole numbers. Your learning goal for tonight is to round whole numbers. Let's write these two learning goals down. Round whole numbers, and then I want you to use the rounding poem and symbols to round correctly. So if you'll write both of those learning goals down, I also want you in your notebook tonight to write down the rounding poem. It'll help you in the long run to remember how we need to round numbers in 5th grade. So take a moment. I want you to write all of those down. Your learning goal, round whole numbers. Your second learning goal, use the rounding poem and symbols to round correctly. And then I also want you to write down that rounding poem. Take a minute and do that. Pause the video, and when you're done, start it again. All right, vocabulary for lesson 2-2 is the following. You've got one word, and that one word is rounding. Rounding is simply replacing a number with the closest multiple of 10, 100, 1000, etc. Now remember, rounding is simply based on knowing the halfway point between those multiples of 10. The word nearest tells you that you should always be rounding. So when you hear that word nearest, make sure you know that that's a clue word that you're going to round. Take a moment, write that and the subsequent information, which is that rounding is based on knowing the halfway point and that the word nearest is a clue word. Write that information down in your journal. Pause the video. When you're ready, start it again. All right, let's do some practice together. Let's review some place value practice so you familiarize yourself again with place value, and then we'll get on to rounding. All right, I want you to write the digit that is in the tens place for 45,123. Did you write 2? If you did, good job. All right, write down the digit in the thousands place in the number 620,933. Take a minute and write that down. Did you write 0? If you did, pat yourself on the back. Nicely done. Let's review one more before we go on. Write down the digit in the hundred thousands place in this number, 508,395,788. Write down the digit in the hundred thousands place. Did you write down the 3? Excellent job. All right, now that we've got that out of the way, let's move on. Let's talk about this rounding poem. If you can memorize this poem and keep it in your head, it's really going to help you with rounding. And you can think about it every single time you are told to round or that you think that you have to round for something. So here's the poem. Find your number, look next door, 4 or less, just ignore. 5 or more, add 1 more, the rest becomes zeros, nothing more. And when it tells you look next door, 4 or less, the number to the right that you're rounding to, if it's 4 or below, you're going to leave it alone. That's what it means to ignore it. You're going to let it go. And if it's 5 or above, you're going to add 1 to the number, to the place value number that you want to round to. You're going to add 1 number to that, and that's it. The numbers behind it, those become zeros. So I want you guys to memorize that poem. It's going to help you in the long run for rounding. All right, let's do some practice. Round this number, 36,825. Round that number to the tens place. Take a moment and do that. See if you got this right. Did you write 36,830? This is what I want you to think about as you write this. Let's practice this. All right, think about if you look at 36,825, the number in the tens place is the 2. So if you think about your poem, you look next door. The number next door is a 5. 5 or above, so you want to increase this number by 1. So then it becomes 36,830, because once you increase that number by 1, the rest becomes zeros. Excellent work. Let's go on to the next one. Remember that rounding poem. Let's review it one more time. Find your number, look next door, 4 or less, just ignore. That means you're going to leave it the same. 5 or more, add 1 more, the rest becomes zeros, nothing more. All right, let's do another one. All right, let's look at this number. Let's look at this number, 375,345. we want to round to the 10,000s place. The 7 is in the 10,000s place. See if you can do it, and then we'll do it together. Did you write 380,000? All right, let's look at it together. If you write 375,345, you're going to the 10,000s place, which is the 7. You looked next door, that's a 5. 5 or above, that means you increase this number by 1. So by 1, the 7 becomes an 8. Add a 0. The rest become zeros. Excellent work. Let's look at one more. All right, we're going to round this number, 120,243, to the hundreds place. The 2 is in the hundreds place. Think about a minute, round it, write it on your paper, and then we'll look at it together and see if we got it right. All right, let's think about this number together. Let's think about 120,243. We're going to the hundreds place, which is a 2. We need to look next door. So when looking at 120,243, we're going to the hundreds place. So we look next door to the 4. This rule is that it's 4 or below, so we just ignore. That means the 2 stays the same. Therefore, you have 120,200. The rest become zeros. Good job if that's what you all did. All right, let's move on. Now think about rounding with 9s. Rounding with 9s is a lot like carrying a number, because you have to use your rounding strategy, but then it makes it a little bit different if there's a digit that's going to increase it to the tens place. All right, let's use our rounding strategy here, and let's think about 58,962. It's very simple. Let's go to the hundreds place to round. Now, we look to the right. We look at 6. It's above 5, so our 9 has to increase by 1. Well, 1 above 9 is 10, so that means the 9 has to become a 0, and this 8 has to become a 9. So let's think about what that's going to do to the other numbers. Think about what your answer is. Write down what you think it is, and then let's look at it together. Did you write 59,000? Let's look at that together one more time. So let's think about 58,962. We're going to the hundreds place. We have to look to the right. It's above 5, so the 9 has to become a 10. That becomes a 0, but when it becomes a 10, you have to carry 1. So 8 plus 1 is 9. The 5 stays the same. Everything to the right becomes zeros. So you have 59,000. Good job. All right, think about these challenge problems for tomorrow. So round to the underlying digit, round to the tens place, round to the 10,000s place. Now I want you to think about those. Write your challenge answers in your journal and make sure you have those at the beginning of math class tomorrow, and you can check those. All right, finishing up. Review your learning goal for me today. Do you have that both of those written in your journal? Do you also have your poem written in your journal? That's going to be really important as we move through these units. Do you have the practice problems that we did together in your journal and the answer to your challenge problems written in your journal? Have all of those down. You've now completed lesson 2.2 part 1. Good job. Get a good night's rest, and I'll see you in the morning.